Good morning, The Bridge. Okay, question. Does it smell like this often, guys? Because this is getting a little much. Anyone else? Anyone else? Thank you. One guy in the room. Thank you. One person of honesty. Thank you. Hey, I want to just say thank you for having us here. My name is Brook. And yes, it's been a girl's name my whole life. My parents did not take a lot of energy towards the naming of my life. And so if you're like, you have a female name, I know this has been a part of my journey. And we're going to talk about real honesty and story today. But before we do, I want to know who's in the room. If you are married, would you please raise your hand? Make some noise. Yes, yes. Okay. If you are a father in the room, would you make some noise real quick, please? Make some noise. Yeah. If you're a mother in the room, ladies, make some noise. So, gentlemen, I just want to highlight something. Did you see how there was unity, clarity, beauty when they responded? And when I asked you guys, you were like, whoa, you guys notice that? This happens everywhere. It is an amazing consistency. Now, last but not least, and you are absolutely not least by any amount, if you are single in the room, raise your hand and make some noise. Keep your eyes open. Single in the room, yes? Okay, so now look around. This is called organic dating, okay? Some of you have been like, how do I find that person? You just saw them, okay? So afterwards. I'd like to start our time with a fact today. Did you know that the leading cause of lung cancer has nothing to do with smoking and everything to do with your DNA? That if your genetics are right, you could literally smoke for years and nothing would ever happen to you. In fact, more people die from diabetes every year than smoking. By that logic, eating a Snickers bar is actually more dangerous than smoking. I recently used these arguments, even though I just made them all up, with a group of friends, and 5 of them believed me. 2 of them took up smoking, and the other couple researched like diabetes problematic symptoms for the rest of the week. My point is this: words. Words have power, don't they? Are we a responding church? I don't know yet. Yeah. Okay, so words have power, don't they? Yeah. They carry weight. Spoken with confidence. Some of you were literally Googling like, this guy's crazy. Why would they let him talk? That's not true, right? But you had to think about it. Words can lift someone up and bless them in ways that are hard to even understand. They give courage, they give clarity, they give hope, but careless words, untrue words, poorly placed words can destroy. If I was to ask any of you, please recall for just a moment a negative word this week or in your life. Many of us would be able to very quickly remember the painful words that someone spoke to us. The identity, maybe it's even shaped in us. But what I want to pose is, what happens if we use these words to God and give them to God through this medium of prayer? I know that you guys have been doing a whole series on prayer and fasting. So today, here's what I want to do. I want to give you 9 words. Not too many. It seems like a reasonable amount. But these 9 words will change your world. 9 words that will help you make sense of your pain currently and how to deal with it, no matter what it is. 9 words that are going to heal your family, heal your wounds, cure your anxiety, give you direction. Many of us need direction. 9 words that are going to give you peace, that will help you know your purpose in life. 9 words that are going to help you know who you should marry, how you should spend your time and your money. 9 words that are going to address your fear of death, help you with your insecurities, help you name your identity, and show you how to navigate deep loss and break generational cycles. And those 9 words, friends, are, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. 9 words, words that shape worlds, change reality. And friends, what we do with our words in partnership with Jesus, in my opinion, is the difference maker in all of our lives. Saying them, believing them, and choosing to submit them matters. It's where we bring our words, our fears, and our lives and let Jesus shape them. I've entitled this talk today, Sowing a Hidden Seed. And this comes from a place of just deep desire in my own life to just begin to learn the process of prayer. This phrase actually comes from a wonderful quote from a man named Ronald Rolheiser. And this is the quote, and I think it's very helpful. It says this: our littleness makes us aware that for the most part, we cannot do big things that shape world history, but we can change the world more humbly by sowing a hidden seed, by being a hidden antibiotic of health inside the soul of humanity, and by splitting the atom of love inside our own selves. We actually partner with God in the formation of our own lives. Did you know that? Jesus is a friend who wants to connect. He's God, right? But he also wants to partner with you in formation in these humble, unseen ways. I think Walter Wink, he's one of my favorite heroes of prayer. He says it this way: history belongs to the intercessors, those who believe the future into being. If you're struggling right now with what's going on in our world or in your personal life, can I remind you that history belongs to the intercessors, those who believe the future. You can pray a new reality. Did you know prayer moves the hand of God? Did you know that when you pray, it might not happen in the exact way or in the exact moment, but God's hand moves. History's changed. That line really gets to the heart of this message. Prayer is how we bring those faith-filled words to Jesus. Now, there's no doubt in this room there's pain. And it's hard. It's like, what, 8 o'clock, past 8 o'clock? It's 8:30 on a Sunday morning. You're not really ready to address the emotional depths of your soul. You're like, I don't even know this guy. He doesn't have hair. I don't trust him. Like, I get it, right? We're new friends. It's going to take a bit to warm up. And I'm not asking you to trust me, and I'm not asking you to even bare your soul right now, but I am asking you this. Can you bring to mind the things that you are most struggling with? Can you even just bring to your forefront of your mind and your space the things that you're scared of? Because I promise you, Jesus wants to hear about those things. Now, this phrase, this teaching actually comes from a recent devotional that we just put together called Sowing a Hidden Seed, Daily Prayers for Your Child's Spiritual Growth. And the reason we did this was because there are so many people that I meet that want to pray. They just, A, don't feel like they have space or time, or B, they just don't really know what it looks like. And so we put together a 31-day devotional. And let me just give you some freedom here. It takes 1 minute to go through one day. Each day is a different topic. Really, they're just anxieties and worries that I have about my own kids. And each topic is like emotional regulation, sexual purity. What are they gonna do with their life? The things that honestly we all sit around and think about. It's a verse, it's a quote, and it's a prayer. It takes 1 minute to do. And the whole reason we did this was simply to just say, it is possible. But through those minutes, brief minutes, you can change your life, the generational cycles that you've inherited. And this isn't self-helpy stuff. This is partnership with the Spirit of God to do the work and to break the cycles and to do all the stuff. So today, I'm excited to share with you a couple thoughts on this idea of prayer. The great C.S. Lewis says, the rule of the kingdom is asking. Whether you like it or not, this is actually a clue to you and I about how God's hand moves in your life, in my life. Learning to pray for quick results is not always realistic. It takes time, creating a culture of prayer. And this quote gives us an idea that we need to use our words to actually bring to our mind and say out loud the things that we are asking. It doesn't always have to be out loud, of course, but that we actually ask. It's like a parent. It's so helpful to know that your kids actually wanted something, right? F.B. Meyer also said that the greatest tragedy in life is not unanswered prayer. In fact, it is unoffered prayer. The greatest tragedy you will most likely ever face is not through God saying no to your prayers. It will be through you never using your words to ask him for your dreams, for the hopes, for the healing, for the help that you actually need right now. Verbalize it, friends. Jesus wants it. He wants to help. Now, before we get into the how, I just want to talk about why just for a brief moment. Because if we forget the why of prayer, the how just becomes a religious activity that you don't feel like you're good at. Anyone feel like they're just slaying it in the prayer game? If you are, anyone? Okay, good. Now, some of you probably do, and you're like, I can't raise my hand because they're gonna think I'm too good, but like, I feel pretty good about this. That's great. There are some in the room that are honestly trying to make that a part of their life. That is great. But for the majority, most of us do not feel like we are just killing it in this. We feel like we could do it a lot more and we should do it a lot more. So let's just talk about why really briefly. 3 brief reasons. First, prayer is the hidden work that shapes generations. It's slow, it's quiet, it's unseen, but it changes everything. Philippians 4:6, remember this, do not be anxious. Isn't that a fun phrase? That's really hard to do. Anybody tried to just not be anxious, and then you became more anxious about the fact that you were trying to not be anxious and it wasn't working? You know what I'm talking about? Don't be anxious, but instead, in every situation, in prayer and petition, 2 words. Those are really important. We're gonna just highlight 2 of those words really quick. Now, at first, it almost sounds like they're repeating, like Paul's repeating himself here. But in the Greek, those 2 words actually hold a beautiful distinction. Petition means to ask. That's like your prayer list. That's you writing things down. That is you asking God. That is petition. But the word prayer is actually proseuchomai, the Greek word. And it means something much deeper. Pros means exchange, and exomai means wish. So prayer at its core is the exchange of wishes. It's where we say, God, here's what I want, but what do you want? It's what we saw in the garden with Jesus. Not my will, but yours be done. Prayer is less about getting our way and more about getting God's heart. And yes, he gives us what we need and even a lot of the times what we ask, but he's also shaping us in the meantime. It changes you. Second, prayer recenters the soul. Ronald Rolheiser said again, if you do not pray, you will either be habitually depressed or obsessed with your own ego. I couldn't agree more. Prayer is a regulating activity. It resets you. When we don't have time to process what happens in a day, we can become overwhelmed. We can become absolutely undone. A prayer walk at night can be the thing that resets my whole mind and body. Through prayer, we return again and again and again. Thirdly, prayer builds and blesses over time. Why do we pray? Because it builds and it blesses over time. One of my heroes of prayer, again, a man named Frank. His name's Frank Laubach. I encourage you to read his stuff. But he was born in 1884 in Benton, Pennsylvania. And he went to become a Methodist educator and missionary in the Philippines. Now, more than that, he was a man of prayer, and he constantly prayed. He believed that prayer moved the hand of God, and he believed it released power to change your life and to change others' lives. So instead of me explaining him to you, let me just quote him right here to you. This is a great example of his view and heart for prayer. Prayer is powerful, he says, but it's not the power of a sledgehammer that crushes with one blow. It's the power of sun rays and raindrops which bless because there are simply so many of them. Instead of a minute a day, we Christians must learn to flash hundreds of instantaneous prayers of people near and far, knowing that many prayers may show no visible result, but at least some of them will hit their mark. And then he uses this great little analogy. When you fill a swamp with stones, 100 loads may disappear under the water before a stone appears on the surface, but all of them are necessary. Let's think about that in the way of building. Frank understood something so important that we need to understand. Asking, seeking, and knocking have a building effect. He took Jesus' words literally, and he continued to build. He also made prayer fun. Where are my fun people at? Can you make some noise? Yes, yes. Where are my introverts at? Not to say introverts aren't fun, but just to say, hey, where are my introverts at? Yeah, I knew you weren't gonna make noise. I knew you were gonna raise your hand. I knew that was coming. I set you up for that, all right? But he also made prayer fun, and he wrote a short book, because fun people usually do like shorter books. This is just true. And he came up with this book. It was called The Game of Minutes, in which he would try to focus 1 second of every minute on Jesus through prayer and turning his mind to God. Wow, that is insane to think about. But he lived in that kind of way. He was an example, and it was huge. So how do we actually do this? How do we sow a hidden seed of prayer and create a culture of prayer in our lives and in our homes? If you are married here, which was many in the room, if you do have kids here, which was many in the room, how do we create a culture of prayer in our homes, in our church, in our lives? And Jesus shows us. Remember, Jesus withdrew to lonely places and he prayed. His prayer life was rooted, but it was not rigid. What I love about Jesus is he was always the ultimate example. His prayer life was rooted, but it was not rigid. It had space. It wasn't just him isolating himself from the world. It had space to hold the realities of life. So how do we hold that tension? We're gonna talk through 3 ongoing practices that are going to help us all, myself included, to often withdraw and access the power of Jesus in prayer. 3 things. Through your life, this is gonna happen through your language, and this is gonna happen through your love. So through your life, how do we do this? This is the practice of presence. A phrase that many of us have heard is we cannot pass on what we do not ourselves possess. Or differently said, you create a culture when you become a practitioner of the culture you're trying to create. You have to own it. This is Leadership 101. This is parent stuff. This is pretty practical and at the very same time easy to miss. We have to lead. Simple to say, hard to live. David Brooks calls this moral ecology. This is that idea. These are microcultures we create by the way we live and the way we lead our lives. Whether you know it or not, you are creating microcultures around you, especially in your homes. Your home has a microculture, and some of those cultures are really healthy, right? And some are not. To have a culture of prayer, it starts with you. Not who you want to be, but who you actually are. See, I could actually dream up a real good vision of who I hope to be, but not be able to live up to it. And you will never create a culture of prayer or be a person of prayer unless you begin to just become a practitioner of it. Simple, hidden ways. Prayer moves the hand of God. Now, how do we create those microcultures? 2 words, and they're biblical. 1 Thessalonians 5:17. 2 words, pray continually. Just pray about everything all the time. When you're stressed, pray. When you're overwhelmed, God help me. We don't need a lot of words to have effective power of the Holy Spirit. It is our attention, it is our mind. God doesn't need a lot of your time. He needs your heart. He wants your heart. If you're overwhelmed, tell him. If you're stressed, tell him. If you're mad, tell him. Talk to him about it. Pray continually. How do we do that? We pray continually. So each one of these is gonna have a core practice. The core practice I wanna give you, something to try this week, okay? Something to try this week practically. This is called the first turn. I wanna give you just the first reflex prayer life. Before you text, before the news, before the worry, before the meeting, pray. Take a moment. Give it to God. God, help me in this moment. I've got a lot going on here. Just pray. The first turn. Parents, before you correct, pray. Man, am I a bear of a parent when I don't ask Jesus to give me his grace for my kids and help me see their situation like God sees me. Man, I tell you, there's a gift when we just pause and say, God, give me the grace and the wisdom here. Spouses, before you respond defensively, hard to do, I know. Pray. One sister over here is laughing. She knows what I'm talking about. You guys are sleepy today. It's fine. We're going to get there, okay? We're going to get there. Every moment of tension becomes a cue that we go, I need to pray. I want to remind you all, you know this, but we will teach what we know. Right now, I'm hoping to teach you what I know, right? But we actually reproduce who we are. You reproduce who you actually are, not who you think you can be. So first, through your life. Second, through your language. This is very important. This is the practice of blessing. Friends, we live in a culture that is desperate for encouragement and blessing. Do you agree with this? We are starving for it. And blessing those around us is the foundation of a culture of prayer. Words matter. Death and life are in the power of the what? The tongue. The people in your life, they rise to who you say they are, or they shrink under the weight of your careless words. If you're a parent, you need to bless your kids. That is speaking life. If you're married, you need to bless your spouse. Every week you cross paths with someone, a friend, a coworker, a neighbor, a classmate. They're starving for encouragement. Words shape worlds. Remember Genesis 1:3, in the beginning, God spoke and creation responded. He used words to create what we are now in. Words have power. And I just want to remind you today that there are so many ways you can use your words, and it is very little effort to say what you see. My wife and I have this practice someone gave us a long time ago. I'm so glad we have adopted it. But when we are speaking well of somebody behind their back, we have to tell them. So that's either giving them a call or a voice memo or a text. So if we're sitting in the car, we're like, oh my gosh, this person just really blessed me today. It was so encouraging. We immediately go, okay, let's tell them. If I'm driving, she's gonna text them, or we'll voice memo or something. I cannot tell you how many times we get a text or a call back in tears from us saying a very simple thing. Friends, you can give that to your friends, to your family right now today. There's many things that you're all thinking about your friends, about your spouse, about your kids, about the pastor of this church, about everybody in this room, and you're just not saying it because you don't think they need it. Say it and watch what happens. I dare you to become a culture that blesses, and watch how people melt in front of you. Watch how the Spirit uses you to build life when you're not saying the negative, but choosing to build life. Now, obviously there's negative things that can come up, but we speak life. I just want to encourage you that there are so many different ways we can handle this, but I encourage you, become a place that blesses. So this week, here's just another practical thing, a second core practice. Speak life daily, okay? This is, again, very practical. This is not meant to be hard. This is meant to be something you can do right now. One word of blessing every day. Pick a child. It could be a spouse, a friend. End the day by naming one thing you saw and thank God for it. Pray your gratitude out loud. Thank God for the things that are happening. And on this note, 1 Thessalonians 5 gives us one more insight. It says this: be skilled at gently encouraging those who feel themselves inadequate. There's many of us right now, if we were to be honest, that do not feel adequate. We, in fact, feel like we are inadequate spouses, inadequate parents, inadequate students. And when we bless, we become skilled at encouraging those who feel themselves inadequate. And that's part of your responsibility, friends, is to build one another up. And you can do that because most of us are actually thinking the positive thing. So let me just give you the one extra. Just say it. Just text it. It doesn't have to be a lot of effort, and it will change someone's life. So through your life, through your words, through your love, thirdly, through your love. This is the practice of consistency. Again, I love this. Prayer needs willful commitment beyond what is normally provided by our emotions and our imaginations. Differently said, if you wait to feel like praying, you will pray very little. I do not usually feel like praying. It is a built-in reflex for all of us. Having a plan and being consistent is the key of creating that culture. Now, for some of you in the room, the word consistency will either bring up great pride because you are very consistent or deep guilt because you are not. Now, it is no secret that all of us feel that tension, but some of you in the room are like, I'm a pretty consistent person. I made a really poor choice a couple years ago to run a marathon. Where are my marathon runners in the house? Yeah. 3, 1, yeah. Yes, okay. I ran the San Francisco Marathon. Terrible choice. I did not think about how many hills were on in this situation. So I decided to do it. My wife then goes, oh, we should run it together. And I was thinking, this is a bad idea, but I was like, I gotta be into this. So I was like, good idea, honey. I didn't think it was a good idea. But anyway, we trained together. We decided to train together. We decided to run this marathon. And you know, at that point, we were running pretty similar pace. And I was usually, just because the genetic situation, faster than her, although she's a very great runner. We started training and you know, game day got there, we're on the race, we're in San Francisco. It was right after our 10-year anniversary, and so we decided, okay, let's go. We're running, and about mile 17, I hit this thing called the wall. You've heard of it before, but yeah, I hit the wall. The wall hit me. I don't know what happened. I was just like, all of a sudden, like, these legs don't work anymore. I guess we're gonna be done with life. I just wanted to sit down and basically die. But I didn't, I kept going. The thing that happened is my wife was nice for like the first 2 stops, and she was like, I'll stop with them. And then after the last 2, she's like, I gotta run my own race. I was like, honey, don't let me hold you back. It was like a scene in a movie, like I'm dying. And I was like, I don't wanna hold your life back, so just go. So she goes. And I was like, I'm gonna catch up with her. So I try to catch up with her, and then I can't see her, then I can't find her. And then I start getting a ton of texts on my phone from the group chat of like, hey, where's Brooke? We saw that Elizabeth crossed the finish line, but where is he? And she's like, oh, he's like 10 or 15 minutes behind me. She got across, she beat me by 10 minutes. This is a lot in running, by the way. She beat me by 10 minutes and had enough time to just blast me on the family chain. She was not using her words to build me up. My wife was really consistent. I am sometimes consistent. And we have to remember that consistency is key. It is not, and I wanna say this so clearly, it is not about intensity. It is about consistency. We have to be consistent. And my favorite visual that gives me just deep hope in this idea of prayer, if you are sitting here right now today and you're like, oh, I need some hope. Let me just give you some hope. Remember Frank Laubach, I told you, remember that quote? He uses that analogy and says that prayer is like throwing a pebble into the pond. Each prayer is simply just a pebble, visually, that you're picking up and you're throwing into a pond. And it is important to remember that day after day, as you pick up a pebble and you continue to throw it in, day after day, one day pebbles will build up enough that you walk across dry ground. Our prayers have a building, consistency, day after day, Success in prayer is about consistency, not intensity. Friends, are you or your family members sick? Don't stop praying. Don't stop asking God for healing. This hits so close to me. My wife has an array of autoimmune diseases that leaves her in pain and bedridden for weeks. She was supposed to be speaking today. She can't because she knows that traveling home today and standing for this many hours would literally undo her. This past week, she was bedridden like literally the whole week. We didn't know if this trip was happening at all. And can I be really honest with you? I prayed that God would heal her. Like, God, we're going to do your stuff on your behalf. Would you just please help? And guess what happened? Nothing. No response. And to be honest, I'm coming to you today talking to you about prayer and in real time really frustrated with God that he's not hearing my prayers in the way that I hope. And that's very real. So I don't want to stand up here and be like, guys, this is pretty easy. It's not messy. I've been talking to God about this for ages and still nothing has changed. What am I supposed to do with that? Should I lie to you and tell you this is pretty straight up and easy? It's not. I've been talking to God. I've been pleading, like, why are you not answering? But let me just give you a little bit of perspective. In this whole space of me asking God for what I'm hoping for, he's slowly been changing my perspective, which is what he usually does. And he's given me all that I need, not all that I want. And that's frustrating to me because I want him to give me all that I want, not just all that I need. And if I was to scale back this week, I would say, actually, in real time, God has given us what we need, but he hasn't given it to me the way I wanted. Now, I can get really frustrated. And there's parts of me that's real. I am frustrated. But I also remember these other heroes of faith that remind me, prayer has a building effect. So I'm gonna keep asking, and I'm gonna keep seeking, and I'm gonna keep knocking. My little girl has special needs. Her brain was robbed from her at 6 months old. I don't like that. I'm having a hard time with the fact that that's the burden, that that's her life. I pray for healing. Hasn't happened in the way that I hope. But can I tell you, my perspective has changed, and I think she has the leg up in this world, not us. What I've learned is that people that don't have all of what we would call neurotypical activities in their brain have a wonderful gift of experiencing heaven and Jesus in a way that I don't think we get to access when we are neurotypical. My little girl gives me insights of people in heaven that I didn't even know existed. So is God not answering my prayer? I think my perspective's been off a lot. So prayer's been more about changing my perspective than giving me what I want. And I don't know where you're at, friends. I know it's hard. I know it's hard when you can think really clearly about what you want and you don't get it and then get mad at God for not giving you what you said you want. But he never promised to give you all the things you want. He promised to give you what you need, and he promised to give you him. And those things will come through prayer. And I know that that's messy, and I don't like it, and I don't like how all of it sounds, but that's the truth. So I'm not gonna stand up here today and be like, I pray all the time, I feel really good about it. I don't. I pray because I have to. I pray because it keeps me regulated. I pray because it helps my life. I pray because I wanna be close to God. And I pray because it's all messy inside, and that's the only way I can make sense of it. And so if you're like me, please join me in the journey of just talking to God about it, because it's not a straightforward situation. But when we give him our life, when we give him our words, when we begin to build, it has a building effect. Remember, Jesus withdrew to lonely places and he prayed. He wasn't rigid about it, right? He was just rooted. He did it consistently and it changed his life. 3 things on consistency and we're gonna be done. How do you create this culture with your family, with your friends? First, pray with them consistently. If you are married, pray consistently. Doesn't have to be a lot of words, just pray consistently. With your kids, pray with them consistently. Second, pray over them consistently. E.M. Bounds says it's a great thing to talk to men about God. It is greater still to talk to God about men. Pray over them. When your kids are stressed, pause. Say, hey, let's just pray real quick. God, help with this moment today. Thirdly, pray about everything all the time. I used to be a pastor in Los Angeles. Not as glamorous as it sounds, as hard as it sounds, actually. And I'm telling you in real time, there was never parking. And it was the most obnoxious thing. We would go to the beach as a family, and we would just pray in parking spots. And when I prayed, nothing ever happened. When my, at the time, 6-year-old daughter, Scarlett, prayed, every single time we would get like a front row beach parking spot. I couldn't figure it out. So I definitely did what a wise man would do. And I said, sweetheart, we're getting close to the beach. We need you to pray. She would unbuckle her seatbelt and stand up because she could still stand in the back at that time. And she's like, Jesus, we're gonna need a close parking spot, not the handicap spot, because none of us are handicapped at this point. And we're gonna need a close spot. And every time stuff would open. Now, I don't know where your theology lands with asking God for minor things, but worked every time. I don't know, like, if you're like, God doesn't care about little things, I think he does. I think he cares about what you care about. And I think when we say, oh, he doesn't, it's not lofty enough, we miss it, friends. You don't have to worry about that. He can filter all the mess of you, I promise. But ask, continue to do that. Thing I want to give you really quickly, last core practice, the daily pebble. Just throw some pebbles in the pond today. It doesn't have to be a lot of words. In the morning, a short prayer of surrender. Mealtime, gratitude. Evening, something simple. Parents, if you are a parent, pray over your child. If your children are sleeping at night, now there's a difference between when you put them to bed and when they're asleep. We all know that. They can be hours apart, can't they? But when my kids are finally asleep, one of the things I love to do is go in their room and just simply pray that God would heal the emotional wounds that they collected throughout that day. And I have to tell you, I don't know what happens in the heavenlies, but I know stuff does. Takes 3 minutes to do. Couples pray. Now, if you're here and you're like, I'm hyper practical, I need more. I need more of a schedule. It's okay, I got you one. Sowing a Hidden Seed schedule, I think it's on the screen. Here you go. So Monday, that's what you can do. The first turn, 10 seconds of prayer. Not very overwhelming. Tuesday, speak life. Try that. Wednesday, obviously take a photo of this. You're not gonna be able to write it down fast enough. Wednesday, pray with someone. Again, this is just very simple. Thursday, pray over your home. Find a place to pray for where you want God's peace. Friday, gratitude out loud. End dinner by naming one thing. Saturday, Sunday. The whole point of this is for you to know that it is not much more complex than this. Just be thoughtful about it. Make a plan. If you're like, schedules kill me, don't use that, right? Make your own. But just understand that is what happens. As we end, can I just share with just a very, very brief story. My wife and I obviously we travel for some of our work, and our kids are with the nanny. And my son, I have 4 kids. My son's almost 17. He acquired a girlfriend and a job and a car. He's become an adult very quick in the last couple months. And we were out of town, and our youngest, her name's Sloan, and her name means warrior. If you believe that your kids live up to what their names mean, do not name your child Sloan. She is fierce. But she was scared in the middle of the night, and she wakes up, and she didn't want to run to the nanny, so she runs downstairs where her brother's room is, and she just violently shakes him awake. And he just like wakes up in a stupor of just like teenage fog. You know what that's like. And the next morning, when we're talking to Sloan, I said, how did you sleep? And she said, I got really scared, but I ran downstairs and I asked Duke to pray with me. And I said, oh, what? Oh, well, what did he do? Because I was expecting that he would not do that. And she said, well, I shook him awake and he put his hand on me and said, Jesus, help her feel calm and help her feel safe and help her go back to bed. That's it. My son in a fog thought, I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna pray. It's not much more complex than that. And so I just want to encourage you, wherever you're at today, bring the stuff to God through your words. They have power. They'll change reality. Can you stand with me as we pray?